Last year I spent $920 on haircuts. Now, that number might not sound a lot, but when I break down how many haircuts I got, the average cost per cut, these prices are getting out of control, right? So, um, as part of kind of like this year, I've been doing this kind of like practice of auditing like my finances for the past year, auditing my finances. That's my goal for this year to kind of figure out where my money's going, right? So I did a previous video, go check it out on how much money I wasted when it came to DoorDash last year. It was over $1,700, and so this is following a similar trend. I kind of want to see what are some expensive habits or expensive costs that I have and finding ways to figure out how I can bring that down. So last year I spent $920 on haircuts while living here in the Bay Area. That was only on 11 haircuts. So I spent $920 on 11 haircuts. That's not even one haircut per month. I would have needed to been 12 haircuts to be one haircut per month. And my average cost per haircut was $83. Now, that's just crazy to like say, right? Like $920 for 11 haircuts, and my average cost per haircut was $83. If I had gotten one more haircut, right? If I would have gotten 12 haircuts, that would have been $1,000 for 12 haircuts. I remember a time when I was paying 25 to $45 per haircut, and um, it's been some time since we've had those kind of like prices. I mean, I haven't paid those prices for years. I mean, back before I moved to the Bay Area, $45 was around the amount of money that I was spending on haircuts, and now I'm paying like $80. I'm paying double the price. And the problem I have with this is the quality of service has not increased, the quality of haircuts hasn't increased. I'm talking, I'm spending this money getting my beard shaped up, getting my beard done, getting like a taper, getting like a fade, and these aren't complicated haircuts, right? Like the service has not matched the increase in cost. Now, for me, I think there's a couple reasons I think the costs are so up, right? One, I think the barber market is saturated. Everybody and their mama wants to be a barber. Everybody wants to cut hair. There was a time when, tapers and fades started to burst on the scene, and you've seen a lot of people making genuine money when it came to the cost that they were charging per haircut. And so you see a lot of people gravitating towards wanting to be working for themselves, wanting to cut hair because there was a lot of money to be made. So you have so many people now on the scene that want to cut hair, right? I think that's one of the reasons. I think another reason, and one of the main reasons, is there's been a rise in the overhead cost to be able to run a barbershop, right? When you think of the rents, the rents that people have to pay to be able to operate these barbershops, especially like in the Bay Area in California, I'm sure a lot of these barbers are being charged crazy amounts just to open up a barbershop to be able to keep the business profitable. I think, you have to put that price on to your customers, right? Like to be able to afford to be able to have this barbershop open, like you're gonna have to pay expensive cost when it comes to rents, right? So I think that's another main factor as to why people like barbers are charging so much, is that they're struggling to be able to pay the rent just to keep the lights on in the barbershop like open. So I think that's another reason. And I think one of the main kind of like last reasons is I think just barbers are getting greedy, right? I think it's fun to be like your own boss, or maybe like business isn't booming and you're not actually cutting so many heads, and so because you're not cutting so many heads, you got to increase the cost of that you're charging per one customer in order to make like an honest living. And that's being and the customer is getting punished for that, right? Like the customers are having to pay way more for haircuts, and again, the quality of the haircuts is not that good. Now, I know some people are going to think it's crazy. I could never pay $80 for, or 83 average $83 per haircut. Where I live is lower. Well, one thing you have to factor in is I live in the Bay Area. I know everything's expensive in the Bay Area, or living in just California in general. This isn't a woe is me. Don't need nobody to sympathize or feel bad for me. I choose to live here, right? What I'll say though is if I was to live somewhere else in the country that's a cheaper place of living, I'm sure the cost to get haircuts are still expensive, right? Because if I was to adjust my same position that I work at for my company, and to go work that same position somewhere else, my wage is going to be adjusted based off of that area that I'm living. but the cost for haircuts is still going to be pretty higher. Definitely not $80. Probably in other major cities, like similar to California, California's Bay Area, they're charging. But I'm sure that people are paying more. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $60, maybe it's $40. But in that market, it should be like a lot lower. It should be $25. So I think it's adjusting, and I think stuff's inflated, um, just everywhere, like in the country. Now, I couldn't imagine paying $80 per haircut and living in a cheap, like cost of living place. Like if you're paying that in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, maybe some of the Midwest states, like you're getting robbed. Like point blank, you're getting robbed. I feel like I'm getting robbed in the Bay Area paying this price. And again, like the service isn't that great. I used to be able to get, and try to strive to get two haircuts per month. Based off the cost, I'm settling for once a month. Like it's only one a month. Every 3 weeks, I'm like planning to try to get a haircut. It's once per month. Last year, I didn't even do once per month. I think I was traveling oh yeah, I was traveling there was 1 month that I wasn't in the country. And so I just didn't get a haircut. But if I would have got a haircut that month, it would have been, $80. I would have averaged out to $80 per haircut for the year. Um, it would have been $1,000 I would have spent. But there's no way I'm getting haircuts twice per month. Paying 160 for two haircuts per month just to, maintain, it's just not happening. And I think these prices are going to continue to get more expensive. Like I foresee, like it's going to be pretty soon that it's normal for barbers to be charging $100 per head, right? For a fade and getting your beard done, etc. Like like you're going to be paying that price, and I think less and less people are going to be opting in for that. Like right now, I'm doing once per month. Like if prices continue to increase, it's got to be once every 2 months, man. We're gonna have to just figure out a hairstyle that looks good, where you can rough it out for a couple months, because I'm just not gonna pay these prices. Like, and I think a lot of people are feeling a similar sentiment because it's just getting out of control. Like it's just, again, like if the service matched, like you can kind of like justify it, or if people were making a lot more money, you can kind of justify it. But it's just crazy, right? People probably just gonna go bald, shave the whole head off and just go bald. Or you're gonna find people like trying to learn the skill and the trade of being able to, self line up. That's some stuff that I need to figure out. Like, how do I line up my own beard? Like, how do I line up, the hairline? Like things like that, just to kind of maintain. And then, you're gonna go longer durations between getting like a fade or a taper. But it's just crazy that's a crazy stat and a crazy data point for me to know that I paid $920 last year for haircuts, and it was only 11 haircuts. That's not even once per month, and that averaged to $83 per haircut, right? Again, don't feel bad. I live in the Bay. I make, really good money. I don't got a lot of debt. I don't have like a lot of crazy kind of like spending like habits. I'm putting a lot of money away towards like investments, as I've talked about in previous like videos. But like, when you're thinking about value and you're thinking about like maximizing like your dollars and getting a good return kind of like on your investment, like haircuts right now is just bad business. Like it doesn't feel good. So I think a lot of people are sharing this sentiment. I've seen videos and I've seen people talking a lot about this, about like how expensive like haircuts are. But again, just understand it contextually from what I'm saying. I think costs are pretty expensive in other parts of the country relative to how much money people like make. So I don't think like in slow, like kind of like lower income like areas in the country, people are paying $80. You're probably paying $50, but don't compare that. I'm gonna say like I've never paid like kind of 80, because you're probably being overcharged for the amount that you're spending on haircuts now, and you're probably finding yourself in a similar situation where you're having to dial back on the amount of money that you're spending on haircuts. Because I know I am, right? Like I can't. I'm not like. Could I pay for twice per month? Like, yes. Do I want to? No. I'm just opting out of it, and I think it's going to be even longer that I'm going to have to go without getting haircuts, or I'm going to have to find some way to remedy the amount of money that I'm spending like on haircuts currently, because it's just not. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like a good investment of like money. Like just knowing that you're being charged these prices, and the service and the quality of haircuts have not increased. Doing fades and doing and tapers for a lot of these barbers, especially the ones that are skilled, it doesn't take a lot, right? Like, as they get like master and they get master like their kind of skill and they master their craft, that there's not so much complexity in it where the prices need to rise. that drastically. I think the rising cost of just everything else is partly what's causing them to like charge more. But also, I think just some people are greedy and they just know customers are gonna like pay that. But I think when customers stop paying for that, um, they're gonna have to reassess. I think some will reassess. I think others are gonna use that as a reason to increase the amount they charge because they're just not seeing as many kind of like customers. Now, the last thing I think I'll like close on too is I just feel like that, barbers, at least the experience that I've had at like barbershops, like they've lost that kind of like hustle to retain customers, to market themselves, to cut more heads. Like it's more it just seems lazy. I think there's a lot of people that have just jumped into this industry to like, and they have a lazy kind of like work ethic and they just charge more. And it's because they know they can charge more that they've jumped into it versus the passion and the love for like, styling people's hair. Um, you know, it's just like, I've been at barbershops where it's like, people uh there's people that want to walk in and there's almost like you don't like nobody wants to cut them because they don't got like an appointment, right? Like there's not this really good hospitality around like wanting to welcome people into the barbershop and make them a new customer. And a lot of barbers struggle with marketing themselves, right? So it's just poor business, right? And then, like if you're a barber, you're self-employed, like I don't want to say a small business owner. I mean, if you own the shop, you are, but you're self-employed, right? So you got to be able to market yourself. It's just like any business. You got to have the skill to be able to retain customers, to provide quality hospitality, quality customer service, to take care of like your clients. And you're finding a lot of people that aren't doing that, but are jumping into this profession and then just are overcharging customers. And it's just not good business, like people aren't going to stand for that for too much longer. I think there's going to be some innovative ways that's going to like disrupt that kind of like market, or people are just going to opt out of it because based off of how most people have their finances set up, they can't afford these prices, especially if they're going to continue to rise. So if you're a barber and you're running like your own business, and you're doing this and like you're self-employed, like you got to understand that you got to have some good business sense. You got to provide like really good service. You got to go out and get it. You got to go out and market. You got to market yourself. You got to go out and be like a hustler, man. Like you got to have that kind of that grind like in you. Like it's just not acceptable to be providing subpar service and not having like a strong work ethic and then charging these like enormous prices and expecting for customers to continue to pay for this. They're gonna find different ways to meet this need, right? And I think there's going to be some disruption that comes to this industry. So that's just my opinion, kind of like on haircuts. I think this shit's getting out of control. I think it's getting like very pricey. I'm not like a fan of it. I'm gonna be reducing the amount of haircuts I get, or I'm really gonna have to do a lot of research into finding, barbers that are charging like an affordable rate, which is pretty difficult because when you're getting haircuts, you don't want to always have to find a new barber, right? Like there's kind of a relationship you want to build with a barber so they can build some chemistry and they can figure out your hairstyle, your texture, what you prefer. And so always having to like shop around for barbers that provide affordable rates just isn't fun, right? So for me, I might just have to dial back and rough it out a little bit more as a way to better spend money or put money in areas that brings me more value. So that's just my opinion. If you like the content, like, subscribe. I'm going to continue talking about stuff that, how I'm spending my finances, how I'm auditing my finances, some ways that I'm going to pivot to get better value out of the way I spend money. And if you want to join me on the journey, just subscribe. And I want to hear your comments too. If you got any comments or you're feeling the same way about the whole barber industry, leave some comments. I'll definitely be responding. Take care.